Hello everybody and welcome to my Into the Breach review. Into the Breach released on the 27th of February 2018 and is developed and published by Subset Games, the small team known for FTL Faster Than Light. Into the Breach is a turn-based tactics game with some roguelike elements. You take control of mechs to fight an alien threat with the aim of protecting as many civilians as possible. Before we get into the overarching meta of the game, we'll delve into the battles themselves. Each battle takes place on an 8x8 grid with 3 player-controlled mechs and takes place over 5 turns. That never changes. What does change are your objectives, the terrain, the enemies, and some randomized drops and building placements. Your main goal is to keep your power grid online. To do this, you just need to protect the civilian buildings. Each building is worth 1 power, so it's all pretty straightforward. However, this power grid carries over between battles, so letting it get attacked and going down to just 1 power, for instance, means you'll start the next battle with just 1 power, so it's really important not to lose any. The only way to gain power is if one of your side objectives gives it to you, or if you spend reputation, which we'll get to a little bit later. If you lose all your power, it's game over and you have to start a brand new game. The only thing you can carry over is 1 pilot, as he's the one that travels back through time to try again. So Into the Breach's battles follow just a few simple rules. The first being that you know what the enemy's next attack is. You don't know where they'll move, but you do know where they'll attack. For instance, if an enemy is going to attack 1 tile forward into your building, you could get a mech to push them a tile to the side, and they'll attack forward but miss. This can be used in a variety of ways. You can push enemies next to each other so when their turn comes they hit each other. You can push them in front of water so they drown when they perform their attack. You can push them into an environmental effect like fire or lightning, or you can even block a new enemy from emerging from the ground by pushing a different enemy over that tile. So knowing where the enemy will attack and what they'll do has huge tactical implications, especially when there are 5 or 6 enemies and you only have 3 mechs. You need to think creatively about who you can block or make them miss, or who you can kill. The next important rule will be turn order. Knowing the order of which the enemies will do their attacks means you can queue up who hits who. It's similar to the first rule, but this information is key to forcing the enemy to attack themselves in the correct order. And the last rule is just understanding the capabilities of your mechs and the enemy. You can get different mechs later, but at the start, you'll have an artillery mech that will fire on people and do damage, or knock them a tile away from the shot, so you can push multiple enemies away. A tank will fire in a straight line for long range, and again push those who it hits, and the prime mech will punch really hard and push enemies as well. So pushing is a big deal early on, but later you can get extra weapons that pull or do damage to adjacent tiles or ignore water, etc, etc. The different tile effects are very important too. Damaging a forest tile, for instance, will cause it to catch fire, hurting those within. Damaging a sand tile will kick up a dust storm, blocking attacks. Breaking ice will allow people to fall through, and so on. Unit types and weapon types then add to the equation, where flying units ignore water and most of the tile effects, and some weapons create tiles like a rock thrower that knocks someone back and places a rock in front of them, blocking their attack. So because of all this, the terrain effects, the tile types, the defenses, the enemy types, the mech types, upgrade side objectives, permadeath meta objectives, and randomized maps, there's a lot going on in these little 5-turn battles, which is why it's so damn good and makes you feel very clever when you figured it all out. Into the Breach starts off really simple. You've just seen the fall of civilization and have travelled back through time to prevent it from happening. You're equipped with 3 mechs to do so, and there are 4 islands that you have to protect. When you commit to fighting on an island, you have to complete the island before moving on to another. Now each island has a different type of climate and is broken up into sectors, each with their own missions and rewards. Some sectors will reward you with power and some with reputation. Power contributes to your power grid, which is essentially your game health bar, and as mentioned, if it reaches 0, you lose the game, and the game is permadeath, meaning you'll lose your pilots for good, and it also uses Iron Man saves, so you cannot just reload the game. Reputation is what's used when you complete an island to upgrade your mechs, and power can also be bought with it, so if you have a particularly bad run, you might want to focus on power more immediately, or if you're ahead, reputation will probably be the better one to look out for, as you can just exchange it later. When you've taken 4 sectors, the island locks down and you fight a final battle on it. Winning this then completes the island and you can move on. This means that you cannot obtain all the rewards on an island, so you need to think a bit about what you want to get, and you cannot do the same one twice. Sometimes there's special rewards, but they can be behind a heavy threat, or there's fewer rewards on an easier run. It's really up to you how much you want to risk versus the reward of just finishing the island so you can upgrade yourself. When you completed 2 islands, a 5th and final island emerges where you can fight the Endgame Battle. I won't spoil it here, but they throw some interesting terrain types your way and missions, so it's a really fun and challenging fight. What's more interesting is the risk-reward dynamic again. After you've cleared 2 islands, you're free to try and finish, or you could try more islands to gain more upgrades and experience. However, the final battle scales to your progress, so going for a 4 island victory won't make the final battle any easier necessarily. After completing an island, you'll have the chance to upgrade your mechs. This is done by spending reputation in a randomized pool of items and by trading the ones you have. Buying or earning reactor cores can be fitted on your mechs, giving them power surplus. Installing extra weapons or upgrading means you're redirecting that power. So for instance, you can use 1 core to get extra health, or more movement, or sacrifice both for a better weapon. It's a really nice system with a very clear and concise UI. The mechs are customizable and can even share weapons for extra power if it doesn't fit their mech class, so it's pretty cool. You can also buy power directly, as I mentioned before, instead of upgrading the mechs, and if you go over the power limit, you'll get an excess power, increasing your defense grid. The defense grid is basically a percentage dice roll that when an enemy hits a building, they won't damage it. This is a really nice touch because when you've perhaps made a mistake or you need to take a hit, you're just begging the game to let you get away with it, and sometimes it does. Outside of the campaign, there are a total of 8 squads in the game with 3 mechs in them each that have their own weaponry. Every squad has 3 unique achievements tied to them, and there are 25 global achievements in 5 categories. Now each achievement unlocked gives you 1 coin, and to unlock a new squad, you have to spend between 3 and 6 coins. This is a pretty nice progression system, as unlocking new things is tied to doing unique things in the game. You can't just grind a victory a few times in a row, you have to actively do difficult tasks, which I like a lot. You can also roll a random squad or customize your squad any way you want. You can change their skins and rename them, and you could have all tank mechs if you wanted. There's also 13 unique pilots with their own abilities, and each of these can be ranked up also during the game. If they're ranked up and they die, their progression resets however, and because you only keep 1 at the end of each game, it can be a bit hard to keep their skills high. And that's pretty much everything that Into the Breach has to offer. It's a really smart and tight experience with a gorgeous art style on top of it. Almost every aspect of it has you weighing up the odds of a risk-reward situation. Running a dice roll on civilian buildings, moving power to weapons or health, finishing the campaign or taking more islands, going for power sectors or for reputation. It's just a series of tough choices in and outside of battle. In the battles, though they take place on a small grid, I've played over 50 of them now, and they always present new challenges and feel unique because of how short-lived they are. As someone who's made small games in the past, I'm infinitely jealous of what subset games have been able to accomplish with Into the Breach. My only deterrent is that after beating a campaign a few times, I'm not sure if there's that much there to make me want to go back other than just the completionist in me. There are stats of how many civilians you save per game and different squad stats, so it might have been nice to see a leaderboard of sorts in order to compare with friends. This is an extremely minor gripe though, and I think the game is absolutely excellent and well worth your time if you enjoy strategy games or tactics games. The game is a great example of packing huge amounts of depth and enjoyable gameplay into what is essentially just one screen. Thank you very much for watching my review of Into the Breach. Please let me know what you think of the game below, or vote in the poll to let me know if you agree with the score. If you want, you can join our Discord where we have a review discussions area, and a big thanks to all my patrons. They're giving me huge support right now, and the channel could not go on without them, so thank you. Remember to check out my straight gameplay of this game if you want to see how it plays moment to moment, and I'll see you in the next one.